At 12:07 a.m., a 911 dispatcher in West Texas answered a call that was never supposed to exist. The line opened to silence at first. No traffic, no wind, just the faint hum of an engine running somewhere far away. Then a man spoke. His voice was so quiet that the dispatcher leaned closer to her headset just to hear him. He was whispering, not because the signal was bad, but because he was afraid of being heard. He said he was sitting inside his pickup truck, parked in front of a gas station that had been closed for years. The pumps were dead, the windows were black, and the desert around him was empty in every direction, except for the road. "There's something out there," he said. "It's standing where the road bends." The dispatcher asked him to describe what he saw. The man didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his breathing had changed. "It looks like a person, but it's wrong." A long pause followed. Then he whispered something that made the dispatcher freeze. "It keeps moving when I look away." She told him to lock his doors, to stay inside the truck, to keep talking. But the line suddenly filled with a low scraping sound. Something was touching the outside of the vehicle. And then the call ended. When authorities traced the call, they found the truck's GPS was still active. It had been transmitting its position every 60 seconds, just like it always did on long-haul routes. But after the 911 call, something changed. The signal stopped moving. It didn't drift, it didn't update, it didn't shut off, it simply stayed fixed on one spot, right where the road curves through 30 miles of empty desert. The timestamp was clear, 12:07 a.m. That was the last moment the system ever received data from the truck. No shutdown, no crash alert, just silence, as if the vehicle had been parked and left behind. Just after sunrise, 2 state troopers reached the location. The road was empty, no tire marks, no footprints in the dust, and there it was. The pickup truck sat exactly where the GPS had stopped. The engine was cold, the driver's door was hanging open, inside everything was still. The seatbelt was unbuckled, a coffee cup sat in the holder, the radio was off, but the man who made the call was gone. There was no blood, no sign of a struggle, not even a single footprint leading away from the vehicle. It was as if he had vanished, straight out of the driver's seat. The missing driver was not the kind of man who vanished without warning. His name was Aaron Cole. For 11 years he had driven the same desert routes across West Texas, hauling freight through places most people never saw. Every night at exactly the same times, he checked in. Every morning he called his dispatcher before sleeping. Every weekend he spoke to his sister. But on the night of the 911 call, none of those things happened. His phone went quiet, his radio stayed silent, and his truck never moved again. When investigators searched the cab, they found something strange. His logbook was open. The last entry had been written at 12:06 a.m., 1 minute before the call. And next to the time, there was a single word: stopped. The gas station where Aaron made the call sat just outside a place called West Mesa. Most maps still showed it as a town, but in reality, it was little more than a handful of buildings surrounded by miles of sand and scrubland. One motel, one diner, one stretch of highway that never seemed to sleep. People didn't stay there unless they had no choice, and when they did, they didn't talk about what they heard after dark. Locals said the desert carried sound in strange ways at night. Footsteps where no one stood. Voices that didn't belong to anyone nearby. But nobody ever wrote those things down. They just learned when to stay quiet. When officers began asking questions, the people of West Mesa were slow to answer. Not because they didn't know anything, but because they knew too much. One by one, stories began to surface. A woman who left the diner late and was never seen again, a mechanic who went outside to check a noise, a traveler who pulled over to rest. Every story had one detail in common: the time. Just after midnight. Especially around 12:07. No bodies, no signs of a fight. Just empty spaces where people used to be. As if something in the desert knew exactly when to come out. One piece of evidence stood out. A security camera at the West Mesa Motel had been pointed toward the road for years. It wasn't meant to watch anything important, but on the night Aaron vanished, it caught something no one expected. The footage showed his truck pulling off the highway. It slowed, then it stopped. The headlights stayed on, and for several long seconds, nothing happened. Then the truck shifted slightly, as if the driver was leaning forward, staring at something just beyond the reach of the camera's view. And then, the image glitched. A tall shadow appeared on the edge of the frame, and whatever it was, it did not move like anything that belonged on a road. There was one single frame in the motel footage that no one could agree on. It lasted less than a second. When investigators slowed the recording down, they saw something standing near the front of Aaron's truck. It was tall, much taller than a person, and its shape looked wrong, not broken, just wrong in a way the eye couldn't settle on. It didn't have clear edges. It looked like it was wearing the idea of a body. When technicians tried to enhance the image, the shape only became harder to understand. The longer they stared at it, the more uneasy they felt. Some of them asked to be removed from the case. The video wasn't the only thing recorded that night. The motel camera had picked up audio. At first it sounded like nothing more than wind and electrical noise. But when the track was cleaned, something else appeared underneath. A low sound, slow, steady, almost like breathing. And then, a second sound, a soft dragging noise, as if something was being pulled across dry pavement, right toward the truck. After the footage became known, another driver came forward. He said he had stopped on that same stretch of road just weeks earlier. His engine had stalled. The desert was quiet. Too quiet. Then he saw something standing near the edge of his headlights. At first, he thought it was a person asking for help. But the way it stood, the way its arms hung, he said it looked like it was still learning how to hold itself up. When he turned his head for just a moment, it was closer. The first missing person could be called an accident. The second made people uneasy. The third made the highway feel different. Just 2 weeks after Aaron vanished, a young woman named Clara Reyes failed to arrive at the West Mesa diner for her overnight shift. Her car was later found pulled over on the same stretch of road. The driver's door was open, her phone was still on the seat, and the time on the dashboard clock had stopped at 12:07. Once again, no tracks, no signs of a struggle. Just empty space where a person should have been. The town sheriff, Martin Hale, had worked those roads for nearly 30 years. He knew every curve, every mile marker, every place a car could hide. When Clara disappeared, he took his patrol truck out alone after midnight. He told dispatch he wanted to see the road for himself. At 12:06, he radioed in. 1 minute later, the transmission cut off. His truck was found before sunrise, parked neatly on the shoulder. Engine off, door closed, no sign he had ever stepped outside, but he was gone. Truckers who passed through West Mesa began talking to each other on their radios. At first, it was just rumors. Then it became a rule. If your engine stalled after midnight, do not get out. If you see someone standing in the road, do not stop. And if the clock hits 12:07, keep driving. Some drivers said they had heard footsteps outside their trucks while parked. Others said they saw shapes moving in their side mirrors. One man claimed something knocked on his door. Slowly, carefully, as if it was trying to copy how people do it. When investigators overlaid all the disappearances on a map, something stood out. Every location formed a loose line, all following the same curve in the road, the same place where the highway bends toward the desert, the place Aaron had been staring at when he made his call. It was as if whatever waited out there had chosen one very specific stretch of pavement. And it wasn't finished. The recording came from the dash cam inside Aaron Cole's truck. Investigators had been hesitant to watch it. The moment they did, the room went silent. The first few minutes were normal. The hum of tires on asphalt, faint radio chatter, nothing unusual. Then, just past 12:05, the camera caught it. A figure standing far down the road. At first, it was just a shadow, barely moving. But as the truck approached, the figure changed. It straightened. And for a fraction of a second, the shape looked almost human. Then it unfolded. Something impossible happened. It moved in ways no human should, stretching limbs beyond reason, balancing in a way that should have been impossible. Aaron whispered into the camera microphone, "It's learning. It's learning to walk." And then silence. The dash cam recorded nothing more, except the sound of a low, dragging breath moving closer and closer. Those who examined the footage frame by frame said they couldn't stop watching. The figure didn't run. It didn't walk. It unfolded, almost like a shadow unfolding itself into something solid. Its limbs extended in ways that felt wrong. its head tilted too far. And yet it was patient, deliberate. As the truck moved closer, Aaron's whispers became terrified gasps. It knows where I am. It sees me when I'm not looking. The recording cut out mid-sentence. There was only the sound of learning, and then nothing. The dashcam stopped recording. The screen went black. Aaron was gone. Not a scratch, not a mark, even a footprint. Just the empty desert, and the memory of the sound it left behind. The dragging, slow, deliberate breath of something that had learned to mimic life, and perhaps to replace it. Authorities left the road. The area was closed officially for maintenance. But locals whispered that the highway hadn't been abandoned, that at night lights could be seen moving where no truck should be, that the sound of slow breathing sometimes rose out of the desert, and that if you drive that road after 12:07 a.m., you should never stop. Because some things are not seen at first glance. Some things learn. Some things wait until you are alone. In the days after Aaron Cole's disappearance, the highway was officially closed. Under maintenance, said the signs. Barricades were set up. Police drove the route during the day, noting how empty the desert looked under the harsh sunlight. And yet the locals knew the truth. They didn't need signs. They didn't need barricades. They knew that stretch of asphalt had claimed more than trucks, more than travelers, more than drivers. It had claimed a presence. And some said it was still learning, still standing, just beyond the edge of sight. The town itself grew quieter. People stopped lingering on the streets after dark. Lights in the small motel flickered less. The diner was open, but voices were hushed. Every so often, someone passing by claimed they could hear footsteps in empty rooms. The sound of doors opening, closing, or someone moving just out of sight. No one stayed long enough to see anything. Just enough to hear it. And the desert outside waited silently, keeping its own secrets. The last known GPS readings, taken months later, still lit up on screens. 12:07 a.m. every night. Same stretch of road, same bend in the highway. And sometimes, the headlights would appear on the edge of the map. No truck, no driver, just lights moving slowly, patiently, as if waiting for someone else to come along. They say the road is empty. They say it's safe. But if you find yourself on that desert stretch just past midnight, keep driving. Do not look away, because something is standing, and it's learning.